Section 48 of Journal of the Reverend Francis Asbury, Volume 2. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Brian Keenan. Monday, 29. We began our grand route to Kentucky at 8 o'clock. We had to climb the steeps of Clinch about the heat of the day. Walk up I could not. I rode and rested my horse by dismounting at times. We came to Hunt's for the first night. Such roads and entertainment I did not ever again expect to see, at least in so short a time. Kentucky, Tuesday, 30. We came to Davis's to breakfast, and at night we slept at Bollinger's, upon Cumberland River. Wednesday, October 1. We came to Logan's and fed. This low and new land is scented. I was almost sickened with the smell. We came to the elder of the Payneses, and lodged. Thursday, 2. We came rapidly to Job Johnson's, and reached it by riding in the night. Now I began to fail. Friday, 3. We came on to our brother Howard's. We crossed Kentucky River at the mouth of Hickman. It was so low that we forded it with ease. We have traveled in 5 days 145 miles. I have slept uncomfortably this week. Saturday, 4. I came to Bethel. Bishop Watcote and William M. Kendry preached. I was so dejected I could say little, but weep. Sabbath day it rained, and I kept at home. Here is Bethel. Cokesbury in miniature, 80 by 30 feet, 3 stories, with a high roof, and finished below. Now we want a fund and an income of $300 per year to carry it on, without which it will be useless. But it is too distant from public places. Its being surrounded by the river Kentucky in part, we now find to be no benefit. Thus all our excellencies are turned into defects. Perhaps Brother Poythress and myself were as much overseen with this place as Dr. Coke was with the seat of Cokesbury. But all is right that works right, and all is wrong that works wrong, and we must be blamed by men of slender sense for consequences impossible to foresee, for other people's misconduct. Sabbath day, Monday and Tuesday, we were shut up in Bethel with the traveling and local ministry, and the trustees that could be called together. We ordained 14 or 15 local and traveling deacons. It was thought expedient to carry the first design of education into execution, and that we should employ a man of sterling qualifications, to be chosen by and under the direction of a select number of trustees and others, who should obligate themselves to see him paid, and take the profits, if any, arising from the establishment. Dr. Jennings was thought of, talked of, and written to. I visited John Lewis, who lately had his leg broken. I left him with good resolutions to take care of his soul. Wednesday, 8. We rode 15 miles to Shawnee Run, and crossed Kentucky River at Curd's Ferry. The river was as low as a stream, and the streams are nearly dried up. Thursday, 9. I preached on Hebrews 3:12-14, at the new house at Shawnee Run. We had rich entertainment for man and beast at Robert Johnson's. Friday, 10. We rode to Pleasant Run to John Springer's. It was a very warm day for the season. I had a running blister at my side, yet I rode and walked 32 miles. We refreshed ourselves at Crawford's Tavern upon the way. We have visited Knox, Madison, Mercer, and Washington counties in this state. It was strongly insisted upon by preachers and people that I should say something before I left Bethel, able or unable, willing or unwilling, Accordingly, on Tuesday, in the Academical Hall, I gave a long temperate talk upon Hebrews 10:38-39. Sabbath Day 12. It rained excessively. We were shut up. William M. Kendry met the people. We have had but 2 Sabbaths to spend in Kentucky, and in both I was prevented by rain. Monday 13. We left John Springer's and came to Lewis Thomas's, 15 miles. A deep, damp, narrow path. The underwood very wet. Crossed Cartwright and Hardin's creeks. I gave a short sermon on Romans 8:9. If any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of his. 1. How we are to know when we have the Spirit of Christ. By the operations, gifts, consolations, and fruits of the Spirit. 2. We are none of his if we are not interested in the offices, if not partakers of the redemption and privileges of Christ. 3. That none can be interested in Christ who are not partakers of the Spirit of Jesus. My system is greatly affected with the weather, but my soul hath abundant consolation in God. It is plain there are not many mighty among the Methodists in Kentucky. In traveling between 200 and 300 miles, I have visited 6 dwellings besides the Academy. At Pleasant Run, October 12, we ordained Joseph Ferguson and Moses Crane to the office of deacons. Tuesday 14. We began our march for Cumberland. We were told by 2 persons that we could not cross the rolling fork of Salt River. I judged we could, and as I thought, so it was. We forded it with ease. We came up a solitary path east of the level woods, and struck into the road to Lee's Ferry. For 10 miles of the latter part of this day's journey, we rode through barrens of hickory, shrub oak, and hazelnut. 30 miles, if not 35, is the amount of this day's work. In the morning there was a very great damp, and in the afternoon it was, I thought, as warm as the west of Georgia. Wednesday 15. We crossed Green River, the main branch of which riseth near the Crab Orchard. We crossed at the mouth of Little Barren River. We then made a bold push for the Great Barren. Dining at Mr. Morrison's, I could not eat wallet provision, but happily for me I was provided with a little fresh mutton at the house, made warm in a small space. Now we had unfavorable appearances of rain. We had bleak, barren hills to ride, which, although beautiful to sight, were painful to sense. The rain came in large and rapid drops for 14 miles. We were well soaked on all sides. A little after dark we came to Mr. Hagen's, upon Big Barren River. A good house, an excellent fire to dry our clothing, good meat and milk for supper, and the cleanest beds. All this we had. I have paid for this route. Tennessee, Thursday 16. We came on to Lucas's. This poor woman was excessively displeased because I asked her if she prayed with her children. Next day we made 35 miles to Sharp's old place, where we had good entertainment. They charged 20 shillings for men and horses. We thence hasted to Mr. Dickinson's, on White's Creek. I waked at 4 o'clock, ate but little breakfast, and rode 28 miles. The poor men and horses were tired down. We fed the horses upon the path, but had no food for ourselves until we came in. I have thought, as I rode along, that in traveling nearly 600 measured miles, we have had only 6 appointments, and at these but small congregations. Have we wearied ourselves in vain? Our judgment is with the Lord. I can only say for myself, I have had the Lord's presence, and great support in soul and body. Saturday, 18. At Parker's, my subject was Colossians 2:6. Brothers McGee, Lugg, Jones, and Spear, local preachers, came to meet me. We had a small shout in the camp of Israel. Sunday, 19. I rode to Nashville, long heard of, but never seen by me until now. Some thought the congregation would be small, but I believed it would be large. Not less than 1,000 people were in and out of the stone church, which, if floored, ceiled, and glazed, would be a grand house. We had 3 hours public exercises. Mr. M. Kendry upon "The Wages of Sin is Death." Myself on Romans 10:14-15. Brother Watcoat on "When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory." We returned the same evening, after dining with Mr. M. Kane. I had a feeling sight of my dear old friend Greenhill and his wife. Who would have thought we should ever meet in this distant land? I had not time as formerly to go to their house to eat and sleep. We had a night meeting at Mr. Dickinson's. Monday, 20. We came by Manslick to Drake's Creek Meeting House at the close of a sacramental solemnity that had been held 4 days by Craighead, Hodge, Rankin, McGee, and Mr. Adair, Presbyterian officiating ministers. We came in, and Brother M. Kendry preached upon Jeremiah 4:14. After him, Brother Watcoat upon "We know that we are of God." I also spoke. My subject was the work of God. Last Sabbath was my birthday. This will make the 30th year of my labors in America. It is supposed there are 1,000 souls present, and double that number heard the word of life on Sunday. Tuesday, 21. Yesterday, and especially during the night, were witnessed scenes of deep interest. In the intervals between preaching, the people refreshed themselves and horses, and returned upon the ground. The stand was in the open air, embosomed in a wood of lofty beech trees. The ministers of God, Methodists and Presbyterians, united their labors, and mingled with the childlike simplicity of primitive times. Fires blazing here and there dispelled the darkness, and the shouts of the redeemed captives, and the cries of precious souls struggling into life, broke the silence of midnight. The weather was delightful, as if heaven smiled, whilst mercy flowed in abundant streams of salvation to perishing sinners. We suppose there were at least 30 souls converted at this meeting. I rejoice that God is visiting the sons of the Puritans, who are candid enough to acknowledge their obligations to the Methodists. We have passed only 2 counties in the district of Merrill. Quiet Cumberland keeps the noiseless tenor of his way through the midst of the settlement. Nashville crowns its lofty bank. Wednesday, 22. We had a meeting at Richard Strother's, upon a branch of Station Creek, and there were great emotions of tenderness among the people. Thursday, 23. We came to Edwards. Brother Watcoat began. I continued upon Matthew 11:28-30. William McGee concluded. We lodged with James Douglas. Friday, 24. We came to Thomas Blackmore's. Brother Watcoat and Brother M. Kendry sermonized. The people were not greatly moved. I concluded with prayer. Saturday, 25. We crossed Cumberland River at Bishop's Ferry. What a long, solitary river is this! It is probably 700 miles upon a line, and near 1,000 in its meanderings, before it empties its waters into the Ohio, 12 miles above the mouth of the Tennessee. We began our quarterly meeting at Elmore Douglas's. Brother Whitecoat preached. Brothers M. Kendry and M. Gee exhorted. At the evening meeting there were more shouters than converts. Nevertheless, the Lord was in the midst. We have ridden but about 66 or 70 miles this week. The country is greatly in want of rain. The large streams are much absorbed, and the people grind their grain with horse mills. I could not be content to leave the settlement without circumstantial account of the work of God, and I therefore desired John M. Gee to give it me. And I purpose to select such accounts annually, and to read them in the large congregations, and then to have them published. Sunday, 26. I attempted but little this day in public, except a class on a portion of the Word from 2 Peter 1:16. We forded Cumberland River, and came to John M. Gee's. We now began to think seriously upon our march through the wilderness, and providing food and provisions for man and horse. We took our departure. Monday, 27. We traveled through rich forests of beech, with rank undergrowth of cane or reed, and arrived at Fort Blount. Thence pursuing our way up Lynn Creek, we took the ridge and reached Mrs. Blackburn's, where we lodged, and were well accommodated. This day we have ridden 35 miles. We urged on our way, expecting rain, which overtook us about 2 o'clock at Flat Rock. We pressed on over Drowning Creek, and the sleepy, discolored waters of Obay's River. About twilight in the Barrens we met the Presbyterian ministers, Hall, Montgomery, and Bauman, with whom we rejoiced at the work of God in Cumberland, and then parted. We came on to a place where we found the woods were burning, and finding we had made about 45 miles, we encamped, whilst the rain was falling upon us. Wednesday, 29. We came to the news station at the Crab Orchard, where, although the station was not yet put in order, Mr. Sydnor received us politely, and treated us to tea. Here we found a cabin under the direction of the Cherokee Nation, on land they claimed as theirs. We journeyed on to Spencer's Hill, so called because here a man of that name was killed by Indians. Thence we traveled forward to Prospect Hill and the descent to Cumberland Mountain. On our route we experienced a heavy rain. Through damps and mud we pushed forward to Clark's Ferry, upon Clinch, in sight of the fort at Southwest Point, at the junction of Tennessee and Clinch rivers, 100 miles below the mouth of Powell's River. We have traveled nearly 70 miles upon land belonging to the Cherokee Nation. The soil is generally barren and broken, except where we enter on Cumberland Mountain and the neighborhood of the new station. This Indian land cuts the state of Tennessee into 2 parts, passing nearly through the middle, making an indent upon the state of Kentucky on Yellow Creek. We arrived at Mr. Clark's, where we received great entertainment. There was a good fire in the hall, and we were provided with a good dinner, and treated to tea. A fire was also kindled upstairs, at which we dried our clothes, to which may be added excellent lodging in 2 inner rooms. Thus were we within, whilst our horses were feeding to fullness in a grassy valley without. Our kind host rents the land from the Indians at $600 per annum, himself making the improvements. Thursday, 30. We rode slowly on to Stars, 22 miles, and had a heavy shower of rain on our way. From Monday morning to Thursday afternoon, we have made 130 miles. We have experienced no stoppage by watercourses, and have found the roads of the wilderness, their unevenness excepted, pretty good. And here let me record the gracious dealings of God to my soul in this journey. I have had uncommon peace of mind, and spiritual consolations every day, notwithstanding the long rides I have endured, and the frequent privations of good water and proper food to which I have been subjected. To me, the wilderness and the solitary places were made as the garden of God, and as the presence chambers of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Friday, 31. I gave a long discourse upon the epistle in the office of ordination for deacons, and ordained John Winton in the congregation. Saturday, November 1. Came 20 miles to Knoxville, of which I had often heard, and which mine eyes now saw. We visited my old friend Greer. Sabbath Day 2. I preached in the State House on Isaiah 55, 6, 7. I was very unwell, but was enabled to bear the heavy cross of public speaking. We had about 700 people in and about the house. We came off in haste, intending to make 20 miles that evening. But Francis Alexander Ramsey pursued us to the ferry, franked us over, and took us to his excellent mansion, a stone house. It may not be amiss to mention that our host has built his house, and takes in his harvest without the aid of whiskey. We were kindly and comfortably entertained. Monday, 3. We rode up to Cleary's, 14 miles, where we dined, and pursued our journey to William Blackburn's. Tuesday, 4. Rode 20 miles up Nolichucky to Benjamin Van Pelt's, where I had left my horse and chaise. In this neighborhood the land, except a few spots, is little better than barren. Nevertheless, good cultivation will make it productive. From the 27th of last month, the day on which we left the pleasant mansion of our friend Van Pelt, to the day of our return, we rode, I presume, quite 660, if not 700 miles. Hitherto the Lord hath helped us. We have had 12 proper appointments, 2 of which, Sabbath days, were near failing because of rain. Wednesday, 5. At Vantown I preached in the new chapel on Luke 4:18. Thursday, 6. Crossed Nolichucky at Quirton's Ferry, and came to Major Craig's, 18 miles. I next day pursued my journey and arrived at the Warm Springs, not however without an ugly accident. After we had crossed the small and great Paint Mountain, and had passed about 30 yards beyond the Paint Rock, my roan horse, led by Mr. O'Haven, reeled and fell over, taking the chase with him. I was called back, when I beheld the poor beast and the carriage, bottom up, lodged and wedged against a sapling, which alone prevented them both being precipitated into the river. After a pretty heavy lift, all was righted again, and we were pleased to find there was little damage done. Our feelings were excited more for others than ourselves. Not far off we saw clothing spread out, part of the loading of household furniture of a wagon which had overset and was thrown into the stream, and bedclothes, bedding, etc., were so wet that the poor people found it necessary to dry them on the spot. We passed the side fords of French Broad, and came to Mr. Nelson's. Our mountain march of 12 miles calmed us down for this day. My company was not agreeable here. There were too many subjects of the 2 great potentates of this western world, whiskey, brandy. My mind was greatly distressed. North Carolina, Saturday, 8. We started away. The cold was severe upon the fingers. We crossed the ferry, curiously contrived with a rope and poles, for half a mile along the banks of the river, to guide the boat by. And oh, the rocks, the rocks! Coming to Laurel River, We followed a wagon ahead of us. The wagon stuck fast. Brother O.H. mounted Old Gray. The horse fell about midway, but recovered, rose, and went safely through with his burden. We pursued our way rapidly to Ivy Creek, suffering much from heat and the roughness of the roads, and stopped at William Hunter's. Sabbath Day 9. We came to Thomas Foster's and held a small meeting at his house. We must bid farewell to the chaise. This mode of conveyance by no means suits the roads of this wilderness. We are obliged to keep one behind the carriage with a strap to hold by and prevent accidents almost continually. I have health and hard labor, and a constant sense of the favor of God. Tobias Gibson had given notice to some of my being at Buncombe Courthouse, and the society at Killian's. In consequence of this, made an appointment for me on Tuesday 11. We were strongly importuned to stay, which Brother Watcoat felt inclined to do. In the meantime, we had our horses shod by Philip Smith. This man, as is not unfrequently the case in this country, makes wagons and works at carpentry, makes shoes for men and for horses, to which he adds, occasionally, the manufacture of saddles and hats. Monday 10. Visited Squire Swain's agreeable family. On Tuesday we attended our appointment. My foundation for a sermon was Hebrews 2:1. We had about 80 hearers. Among them was Mr. Newton, a Presbyterian minister, who made the concluding prayer. We took up our journey and came to Foster's upon Swansego. Company enough, and horses in a drove of 33. Here we met Francis Poythress, sick of Carolina, and in the clouds. I, too, was sick. Next morning we rode to Fletcher's, on Mud Creek. The people being unexpectedly gathered together, we gave them a sermon and an exhortation. We lodged at Fletcher's. Thursday 13. We crossed French Broad at Kim's Ferry, forded Mills River, and made upwards through the barrens of Broad to Davidson's, whose name names the stream. The aged mother and daughters insisted upon giving notice for a meeting. In consequence thereof, Mr. Davis, the Presbyterian minister, and several others, came together. Brother Watcoat was taken with a bleeding at the nose, so that necessity was laid upon me to lecture. My subject was Luke 11:13. End of section 48. Recording by Brian Keenan.